Greetings, everyone, and welcome! It is time for... That's not my intro. It is I, Candace Narrabent Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here in the Dracovin Empire. And I broke my brain. Hey, everybody, welcome. It's time to talk about Pathfinder and the Golarion world. I hope you've always enjoyed these things here, and I honestly could probably edit them a little bit more, but because I do them live on Twitch, if you haven't ever caught them, I try to keep it a little bit of a open thing. So, I hope you enjoy this one. We're going to be talking about Kitsune today, which is unfortunate because there just isn't a lot of information about Kitsune. This might be one that I will revisit in the future, but it's sort of like when I was doing my research on it, I still wanted to talk about it. Because I feel like it is important to talk about everything, and especially since I'm going through a lot of ancestries right now, locations and stuff like that. It's less that I want to treat each one as if they are still important. And Kitsune is one of the uncommon species in Golarion. It's a ancestry that certainly you could play. Just the sheer fact is that there isn't a lot about their society, there isn't a lot about their going, and yes, that's forever. And I can give you some information about them, but it's not a lot. But why don't we dive into Kitsune and I can talk about it, and we can show you what we have today. Because there's some stuff to talk about. Let's start where I always start with and mention a number of books. Of course, I do use the White Wolf, or not White Wolf, that's for my White Wolf video, the Pathfinder Wikipedia as a good source for basic information, and then I usually reference a number of books for additional information, and this is just the same. In fact, actually, I have to rely more on these books today because the Pathfinder Wikipedia is even less than these. Surprisingly, in order to get more of a picture, I really had to dive deep into these books. So, Inner Sea Races is one of the books that shows off some of this stuff. Of course, the Advanced Race Guide. These are both older Pathfinder First Edition books, which gave some information about it. And if you're looking for Second Edition, the Ancestry Guide is where you could go to. So let's throw out this Kitsune here and talk a little bit about Kitsune. I'm going to start with the basics, which come from the Wikipedia before diving into two books to talk about them, to reassure you on some of the information. So, who are the Kitsune? They are fox-headed humanoid shape-changers. They're originally native to TNZ, and they are well known for being fans of trickery and beautiful things. They are pranksters. They usually do a lot of harmless, good fun pranks. If you would anger, insult, or even back at Kitsune in the corner, things like their pranks could turn deadly. They have two forms. One is their natural anthropomorphic fox form, and their alternate form is a attractive humanoid with slender build and piercing eyes. That humanoid tends to be with whatever humanoids they were when they were born. Things like humans, elves tend to be very major ones. Humans, of course, because Kitsune tend to be in a lot of places that humans are. If you're talking about classes that a lot of them do go into naturally, many of them go as rogues, investigative bards. Their magical abilities tend towards sorcerers and oracles. If there are those that connect with spirits deeply, they can sometimes become witches. So, referencing basic information on Golarion, there is a group of them that live within the Forest of Spirits. And they are the only humanoids that settle in that area. They're the only ones that the kami of the Forest of Spirits are willing to tolerate deep within the forest itself. And basically, any other communities connected to the Forest of Spirits are on the outskirts of them. Forest of Spirits being with TNZ. I'm not going to go deep into it because it is an area within the continent, and we're not talking about that now, but it is a location where it's connected with basically massive amounts of spirits and kamis, and honestly, it lives up to the term, Forest of Spirits. So, we still can dive a little deeper into Kitsune other than just this. These are kind of basic informations. The Kitsune in their true form will have oftentimes downy auburn fur, exotic coloration, basically other fox colorations are possible. A big feature about them is their tails. they will normally have a single tail, but as they grow more powerful, they can sport multiple tails, up to 9 tails. In parts of Minkai, there are tails of Kitsune that are very powerful with 9 tails, and this represents a level of power to them. The humanoid form, again, and its natural Kitsune form have one thing. The eyes retain the same hue, which can be golden to brilliant blue. So that's a noticeable similarity between Kitsune and their multiple forms. Their society, within TNZ especially, is largely enigmatic and impregnable to non-Kitsune. The fact is, in places where Kitsune are the main group, they tend to be very separated out. Loyalty amongst friends is very highly sought after, is very important to them. Trickery can spawn rivalries and ill will amongst strangers, and they do have a reputation in the Dragon Empires because of their trickery. There are plenty of Kitsune that live within human societies and have spread across Golarion, as much as they are Tienian to begin with, originating from the continent of TNZ. Like many other the ancestries, they have spread throughout Golarion, and those that dwell within human societies, in particular, try to hide their identities and true natures, oftentimes just being another human. But they will sometimes take on their forms, their true forms in the twilight for entertainment or nocturnal adventures. So, you do get a lot of Kitsune that are, especially nowadays within the Golarion time period, who are in places that they are connected with the communities they have. Plenty of Kitsune outside of Tien only know their family. They don't know of Kitsune society as a whole, and they only know of their families, some old the culture that their families took with them, and the human societies they grow up along. And this means that it's an interesting juxtaposition, because that is actually now a vast amount of Kitsune are just travelers in the world, and this natural way of doing things that is their old society is becoming more muddled and watered down. Like a bunch of other ancestries, this is happening, and they are more integrating with the more bolsterous and, honestly, many of them, human societies. Granted, it is not just human society, but that is a primary societies in many places in Golarion, and you see it with Kitsune even too. If two Kitsune meet and they recognize each other outside in the world, outside of these communities, where, again, a lot of places Kitsune are rare anywhere near the majority. They will basically have a light verbal repertoire, try to outwit each other a little bit. It's basically offensive to other Kitsune to reveal each other's nature, but, forcing them to break character is, something that can be done. Like, don't confess that they're a shape changer. Trick them into revealing it is much more of the way of doing it. That's the kind of way they might do it. Angen has a Kitsune settlement in the Inner Sea region, located in the Verduin Forest of Taldor. They aren't really an ethnicity of Kitsune, but a group of Kitsune from many other regions that have come together. They kind of share information about through the various Kitsune people, and they do have this common ancestry of Kitsune. So they see themselves in Angen as a representation of all Kitsune, and that's kind of the way to look at it. And I'm going to butcher this a little bit. Hoeko, they live in scattered groups along in the Chanleo Forest. In the otherwise people Huangot, they have lean bills, darker furs, golden eyes. The Imperial Lungwa drove these Kitsune underground, chased them to the edge of society. The Hueco Kitsune basically scavenged on vegetations, less desirable meats like livers. The Hueco Kitsune are antagonistic and have a misanthropic view of civilization because of this persecution that they receive. And they are very reluctant to perceive themselves as Kitsune. And there are even those that, because some Kitsune can get a fox form, live just that way, as foxes. Rarely even coming into any forms of society. Rengo are a group that there's caravans that cross the crown of the world, or ships that sail the vast seas, and Kitsune are numbered as passengers. So, on Invastian, there is a population in Irison and Varisia. So these Rengo Kitsune are dark brown or reddish fur. They are travelers who have come to this region. They are one of the main ones you find in the Inner Sea region. In places like Absalon, you'll have some Kitsune groups there too. But again, Irison, Varisia, these concentration of Kitsune that have migrated through the major trade routes from Tien to the other side of the world. They focus on trade skills. They're farmers, artisans. They do remain connected to their old traditions and stuff, but they also enjoy deep diving into other soothsaying types of traditions like harrowing or caseography, bringing those into their own customs. The last group would be called the Soku Kitsune. Kitsune, because I talk about their connection with the forest of spirits, they're always seen as this between the real world and the spiritual world, and the Soko are those that dive deep into it. Those are the individuals from the forest of spirits, the settlement of Hihime. They're courtiers, diplomats, translators between Kami and the outside world. They travel in northern Ninkai, eastern Hangul. They're oftentimes liaisons between mortals and spirits. They have this ambassadorialship in their culture. So they separate internal and outward feelings a lot. They tend to remain in a tailless form when amongst other ancestries to basically keep a familiar face. So basically, they retain their humanoid, alternate humanoid form, whatever it would be, in amongst others because they want to feel familiar to them. So they are one of the ones that, again, you can see why some of them would avoid their natural form, but these particular do it out of respect. So, those are basically the groups of Kitsune from across Golarion. At least the major groups of them that we can talk about. And you can see each of them has a unique and developed culture. And here's where our journey, unfortunately, ends for them. As I said, there just isn't a lot on Kitsune. And it's an unfortunate part about them that we know about them, and they do have a number of these societies, but the deep culture of the Kitsune is, in fact, tied to Tianian culture. And it can be best described as a exemplar of that. And perhaps when I talk about either the Tianian ethnicity in the future or some Tianian countries, where we can talk about their cultures, these locations where the groups of Kitsune I talk about are at, that's when maybe we will dive more into them, in a way. Because it's just how they've developed and where they've developed and who they've developed along has made them what they are, in a way, rather than making them a unique part of it. Similar to other groups that I've talked about, let's say halflings. Halflings are very ingrained in human society, and though they have bits of culture on their own, their culture mostly reflects whatever human group they're living amongst. And it's unfortunate to say the same is often with Kitsune. And where they can culturally kind of place themselves separately, they do develop a little bit differently. They do integrate a little bit differently. They do evolve. And you can see that there are Kitsune and Bastion and Grund and across the world, but they are still centered out of Tien, and in TNZ, they are still Tieni. It just rings true that they are part of that group. I would love to see more developments, more information about them. If they blending, so they share culture. They are shape changers. They are blenders. They blend in. They have a form, And yes, maybe when we learn more about the spirit parts, and if we dive deeper into that with more information about Tien. We do have the TNZ information book, but I have to look over that and see how much information has been given now, and things like that, and, where it's developed more information on Tien and places like the Spirit Forest and a lot of the culture there, and how that culture and connection to Kami, we need more development for some of these ancestries, but again, as I talked about at the beginning of the day, we should respect them all, and me speaking about them, at least in these videos now, respects them, and gives you some information. Is it as much as I'd like to give? No. But I hope you've learned enough today to know Kitsune, at least on a basic level. And, yeah, there's probably more to talk about, but we'll do it in the future. And hopefully we'll get more stuff in. Maybe I'll have an update video or a new video on something in the future. But until then, I thank you for joining me. This has been an interesting one, diving deep as much as I can into a group that has, honestly, very little information. If you are joining me live on Twitch, thank you for joining me. Always give a follow, that's a really good support. Always check out my YouTube side of everything. If you're joining me on YouTube, please always check us live on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursdays in the afternoon, Saturdays in the late mornings. The Thursday time tends to be when I do a couple of topics on Pathfinder, the Golarion world. Make sure if you're on YouTube, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. Have you played Kitsune? And I've got some social media, Discord, Twitter, or Discord, Twitter.com, I should say. But, Twitter.com, Discord, link below, all that stuff too. Gives schedule, basically. Alright, I think that's where we leave it today for this one. Thank you, everybody. I've given my shout-outs, I've given my information. I hope you learned. But until the next time we talk about Kitsune, hopefully in the future, or even just Canadian culture at some point in time, whether it's a nationality of them, or a human ethnicity, or one of their specific countries. But until that time, I bid all of you out there,